So how long does it actually take to lose fat? 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 6 months, 10 years? Well, the reality is it depends, but the good news is that it will likely be a lot faster than you think as long as you aren't doing what so many people do wrong. Surprisingly enough, it's actually very easy to work out exactly how long it will take for you, and to demonstrate that, I'm going to use my client Jay as an example. Jay started off at 225 pounds and 30% body fat, and his goal was around about 15% body fat. So for me to work out how much fat he actually had to lose, I first had to work out how much fat he was carrying. To do this, you simply times total body weight by the body fat percentage as a decimal. So in Jay's case, it was 225 pounds times 0.3. That gave him a fat mass of 67.5 pounds, and his fat-free mass, meaning his bones, his muscle, his organs, and everything else, was 157.5 pounds. To work out what his weight would be at his goal of 15% body fat, we take his fat-free mass and times that by 0.85, which comes out at 185 pounds. Just for reference, if you were aiming to be 20% body fat, you would times your fat-free mass by 0.8, and if you were aiming for say 10%, you would times it by 0.9. Based on Jay's calculations, he would have to lose 40 pounds of body fat to reach his goal, but the question remains, how long will it actually take? There's a few ways to approach this, but assuming you want to lose fat in a sustainable way, you would aim to lose around 1 to 2 pounds of fat per week. So in Jay's case, it would take anywhere from 20 to 40 weeks. Now that may sound like a long time to you, but that's one of the biggest reasons people quit, because they expect to get lean and shredded in 6 to 8 weeks. And unless you have under 10 pounds of fat to lose, that's just not reality, I'm afraid. Whereas if you zoom out a little bit and look at say a 6-month time frame, that's how you can go from being completely out of shape to in very good shape, just like Jay did. By the way, if you want to learn exactly how Jay did it, I've actually put together a free fat loss Kickstarter blueprint where over 17 days, I will send you 17 emails containing the exact blueprint, which also includes macro-friendly recipes like this protein cookie. You can get that again for free by clicking the second link in the description. With that being said, there are a few variables that will completely change the timeline you're looking at, because let's be real, although the maths is simple on paper, real life isn't. The first and the most impactful variable is your approach. If you're doing things the proper way, so eating in a small calorie deficit, getting your steps in, getting enough protein and resistance training, you will lose fat whilst maintaining or even building some muscle. But where so many people go wrong is they will look at the timeline they've worked out and they will say, no, I want the results faster. So they will crash diet and do silly amounts of cardio. And yes, the scale will go down very fast, but you won't just be losing fat, you'll be losing glycogen, water, and even muscle mass, which is the last thing you want. I made this mistake myself. When I was first trying to lose fat, I knew I had well over 50 pounds of fat to lose. So I said, right, I'm going to take an extreme fast approach. I jumped on the keto diet, did loads of cardio, and in the first couple of weeks, I lost 7 pounds of fat. But guess what? After those few weeks, I couldn't take it anymore, and I eventually binge ate and gained every single pound I lost straight back. Even if you are one of the 1% of people who are somehow strong-willed enough to reach their desired weight with an extreme approach, you're going to lose muscle mass like we just said, so you'll end up looking flat, soft, and skinny fat. And I see this all too often. I would say 1 out of 3 guys that come to me say, I've lost all the weight I wanted to, but I look nothing how I thought I would. And 99% of the time is because they lost the fat too fast. So just remember, slower fat loss is more sustainable, and it will also give you the body you actually want. And if you've been fat for years, why do you need to do it in 10 weeks? Slow down and you will reap the rewards. The second variable is how accurate you are of your starting point, because so many people underestimate how much fat they actually have to lose. Unless you're getting your body fat measured professionally, a good rule of thumb is to overestimate how much you think you have to lose by around 20%. So if you think you have 40 pounds to lose, it's more likely 50. Using myself as an example, when I first started out, I thought I had around 50, maybe 55 pounds to lose, but it turned out to be well over 70. So trust me, from personal experience, you are likely underestimating. And look, that's not me trying to discourage you. I just think it's important to give yourself a bit of leeway so you don't end up disappointed, freaking out and quitting because things are taking slightly longer than you thought. And surely it's better to overestimate, that way you get a nice surprise. The third variable is life. Because let's face it, no one lives in a vacuum in space where they can just focus on nothing but losing fat. Let's be real, over the course of a few months, you're going to have birthdays, holidays, nights out, maybe a niggling injury, and many other setbacks. So again, if your calculation comes out as say 16 weeks, give yourself 20. You need that little bit of leeway, that's fine, it's life. The mistake people make is that when fat loss slows down, they think they've failed and they quit. But what you need to realize is that fat loss will always take slightly longer than you think. Just stay consistent and it will happen. And the funny thing is, most of the time, slow fat loss ends up being much faster than fast fat loss. Now, I get you're probably looking at the screen right now thinking, what the hell is this guy on about? But like I touched on earlier, fast progress is not just fat loss, it's fat, muscle, water, and glycogen. And when you combine that with constant hunger, zero energy, and your brain screaming at you to go and buy 17 Subway cookies, what do you think is going to eventually happen? You will break, you will binge, and you will quit. And that will happen over and over and over again. So whilst technically you did lose weight faster, did you really though? Because a few months down the line, you would have put it all back on. And if you compare that to what happens to when you take a slow and sustainable approach, yeah, maybe in the first few weeks you only lose 1 or 2 pounds, but you can be consistent with that. So over time, you lose more because you aren't starving, you aren't miserable, and your body starts working for you rather than against you. And a few months down the line, you'll be leaner, stronger, and in better shape than you ever have been. So whilst yeah, technically it takes a bit longer, wouldn't you rather that if you get to keep the results for life? And if you're sat there right now thinking, well, Aiden, I want it gone in 10 weeks, ask yourself why. You spent years or decades maybe putting that fat back on. So what's 6 months in the grand scheme of things? And what you need to understand is there are massive benefits to taking a slower approach. When you stay consistent over a period of months, you don't just lose fat, you rebuild your entire relationship with food, exercise, and your body. You will stop labeling foods good and bad. You won't lose your mind and start crying because the scale went up by 1 pound in the morning, and you will finally feel in control again. And by the time you reach your goal, you won't even be the same person anymore. You would have built the discipline, the mindset, and the awareness to stay lean for the rest of your life. And you only get that if you take the sustainable approach. You will rob yourself of that if you try and do things too quickly. Look, when you clicked this video, you obviously wanted to know how long it was going to take for you to lose fat. And I have no idea whether you searched that up or the algorithm fed it to you. But what I need you to do right now is let go of a timeline. Because whether you like it or not, you can't just click your fingers and suddenly all your fat's gone. It's always going to take longer than you think until one day you wake up, you look in the mirror, and it's gone. You'll have weeks where the scale doesn't move, and then suddenly out of nowhere, it will drop 2 or 3 pounds. You'll have weeks where you feel like nothing is working, and then one day you'll catch yourself looking in the mirror when you're walking down the stairs and be like, holy shit, is that me? So don't obsess over timelines. The second you attach such set expectations to something, the harder it is for you to achieve. And that's the same for anything. Imagine instead of making these videos, I was just sat here doing nothing thinking, oh man, I can't wait to have 1 million subscribers. It wouldn't happen. So let go of that timeline. Take the pressure off yourself and focus only on the inputs. And the second you do that, you will realize that time is your greatest ally. Whether it takes 12 weeks, 6 months, or a year, fuck it. Eventually the fat's gonna come off. So learn to enjoy the journey and you will move closer and closer to the results you want. And eventually, that day when you wake up and you're in the body you've always wanted, you will realize that the timeline didn't even matter. Because the moment you decide to stop quitting, that's when you won. If you do want my help on this journey where I will personally coach you to lose fat and keep it off for the rest of your life, click the first link in the description of this video. Other than that, if this video helped, leave it a like, share it with a friend, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.